Ladies and gentlemen, students and parents, thank you for joining us for our town hall event this evening. Whether it is that you're already committed to joining with FCA this school year, whether you're still very pensive about whether or not in-person instruction is right for you, your family, and your child, or whether you're joining in just to see what it is I'm going to say this evening, I'd like to thank you for joining us and for taking time out of your busy evenings to join us for this event. In case you are unaware, my name is Mr. Lavoie. I'm the administrator of Frederick Christian Academy. My moderator this evening is Mrs. April Davis. She is our 5th and 6th grade teacher. She's our art teacher, and she's also our homeschool director. Yes, 3 titles all in one right there. We're very thankful for everything she does. Throughout the evening, if you would like to ask us any questions, please email us at covid19@fcamd.org. That's COVID19 at fcamd.org. Mrs. Davis is going to be looking at that email address all night long, looking at your questions, and she'll verbalize them to me, and then, of course, I'll answer them for you. So please make sure you email us anything that you want more guidance on or have extra questions on, or anything that I don't cover. We would appreciate that greatly. The purpose of this event here this evening is to be completely transparent, as I want you to be comfortable with my reopening plan, with our ability to keep your family safe, as well as to understand the risks that are involved in anything in life, but also, of course, in having your child come to Frederick Christian Academy in this school year. At this time, let's begin with a word of prayer. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity that we have to come before you, to partner together as one. Father, I ask that you would give these parents, these students, as they can submit questions as well, these families that might be joining us that are not technically a part of our family yet, but that are considering doing so. Father, I ask that you be with my faculty. I ask that you be with me, that we would be asking the right questions. Father, that you would give me the wisdom to be able to respond to them appropriately, and that you would give me just the willingness to answer them honestly, regardless of what that answer happens to be. Father, of course, that throughout this event, honestly, that you would just be honored and glorified, that everything we say and do would go back to yourself, and we'll praise you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. There are 2 things I want to do at the very beginning here before I start dealing with the questions that were pre-submitted for this evening. Number 1, I want to remind you of the FCA mission statement. Frederick Christian Academy's mission is to assist parents, to partner with families, specifically in educating their children in accordance with scriptural principles and by providing high-quality academic and spiritual instruction, as well as encouraging students to be Christ-like and to live Christ-like lives. Inside of that, there are a couple of words I really want to hone in on and remind everybody about. Number 1, FCA is here to assist you. I've had a number of people that have felt that they are somehow turning away from the ministry or hurting the ministry. I'm struggling to find the right word, but that they are somehow hurting us by choosing not to have us assist them. And I got to say, well, I'd love to be able to assist you and partner with you. If you are not completely comfortable with our plan, if you truly feel that we are not the right entity for you, I understand. We are here to support you. And we specifically want to support you in education and in not just academic education. It's very important that your child knows mathematical principles and sound ability to speak as well as to write, to read to the best of their ability for God's glory right there. But ultimately, we do all these things to honor and glorify our Savior. And so, of course, part of our mission statement is that we encourage Christ-like living. This is ultimately the reason why we are reopening, because our ability to assist you with academic instruction and with spiritual guidance is best done in person, and therefore we reopen. Secondly, of course, it mentions there that we encourage students to live Christ-like, and absolutely it is going to be way easier for us to be a real hand inside of that encouragement if we get to do that in person. Secondly, I'd like to remind you of my theme for this year. My theme is magnifying Christ. God directed me this year to Psalm chapter 34 and verse 3, which states, "O magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together." I've really enjoyed thinking about that word, magnify. 3 different ways that we ought to be considering that word magnify right there. One, that we take something that is currently small and make it large. large in our lives, something that is somewhat near, or something that is far, you'll have to forgive me, and we draw it near into our lives. And then lastly, something that is out of focus, something that is blurry, and we focus it in our lives. These are three things that David wants us to recognize that he was doing in his own life in a crazy set of circumstances. Go ahead and read 1 Samuel 21 sometime. Take a look at the circumstances surrounding Psalm 34. And David was, of course, recognizing that he needed to make God large in his life once again. He needed to draw near to Christ, to the Lord, once again, that he needed to focus in his life back to his Savior. And that is really the goal that we are going to do this year as we seek to assist you in educating your children and in reopening, that in all things, Christ would be magnified. With that, let me turn the page, and I'll go through the questions that were pre-submitted to me this evening. First question I'm going to deal with here is, with Frederick County Public Schools going to full virtual instruction, will FCA still do in-person instruction? And the answer is yes. FCA is committed to reopening, to providing a safe environment, and to be able to provide in-person instruction. While I recognize that there may be times when COVID-19 finds my ministry, and that I may have to shut down instructional units, that's K3 or K4 as one, K5 through second grade as another, third grade through sixth grade as the third, and then 7th through 12th grade in its entirety as the last one there. While I may have to shut down an instructional unit, my goal is to not do another full school shutdown unless I need to do so for one day with which to clean the ministry so that we can come back and know beyond the shadow of a doubt that we are free of COVID-19. But we are committed. I agree wholeheartedly with the American Academy of Pediatrics and with the Center of Disease Control and their guidance that they give to schools in saying it is necessary for us to reopen. Few students learn and have the diligence to learn appropriately through at-home virtual instruction. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm very thankful for how well FCA did in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, it is far better for students to get that in-person instruction, and so we are committed to be open as much as possible, as long as it is safe, for your students in the coming school year. The second question that comes right along beside that is, can you guarantee that my child will not get COVID-19? The answer is no. I cannot give that guarantee. Just like Walmart can't give that guarantee, just like church can't give that guarantee, anywhere you go, there is a chance. And so the question you got to ask yourself is, are you allowing your student to go to the store? Are you allowing your student to go to the park? Are you allowing your student to hang out with friends or with family members that are outside of your home? In any one of these situations, there is a risk. And there is a chance that even though you may not know that somebody has COVID-19, that they may and that your child may get it. Unless physically we are going to wrap our children in a bubble and never let them leave our homes, there is always a chance that COVID-19 finds your home and finds your family, finds your children. And therefore, I cannot guarantee that you will not bring COVID-19 into the ministry. Just as I cannot guarantee that a child will not get COVID-19 from the ministry. I will tell you, we are doing everything we can to follow CDC guidance and the guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics, guidance inside of FCPS, guidance from the Maryland Health Department, the Frederick Health Department, so that we will open in a way that should limit the ability for COVID-19 to come in, and if it comes in, that will mitigate or limit the spread of COVID-19. That's the whole point of the instructional units right there. But with all these things in place, we are taking a risk. And hence the reason why we do have a waiver that you are required to sign in order to have your child enroll. That's, of course, on our website, was emailed to you and will be provided to you at back to school night or day one if you don't have that signed when you first come in. But there is always a risk of COVID-19 finding us right there. Thirdly, is there a chance that the Frederick County Health Department shuts Frederick Christian Academy down, similar to what happened to private schools in Montgomery County? I don't know how many of you are familiar with the situation that's going on in Montgomery County. It is a difficult situation. I agree with Governor Hogan that it is not the right of the health department to shut down private schools. It is one of the main reasons why we have chosen to be a church-exempt school rather than to allow government oversight over our facilities. However, I have been in contact with the Frederick Health Department, and they have given me no indication that they plan on following the Montgomery Health Department and what they're doing to private education in that county. And so I would be highly surprised if Frederick County decided to reach into private education and to try and shut us down like what is going on in Montgomery County. We'll see what happens, but that is what I've seen with the health department and what I've said or been able to do with them. The next question is, will students really be required to wear face masks in the classroom? All right, so Governor Hogan gave guidance saying that now religious facilities have to have face masks at all times. Now we have, if you are indoors or outdoors in a general public, in an area where general public get to come in, then you're required to wear a face mask. And therefore, I immediately put out that FCA is going to follow, because there are clear biblical scriptures, principles, I should say, and those are on the website if you don't have them, that state that we need to follow our government. For the sake of our testimony, it is important that we follow any government requirements that don't restrict our ability to worship and don't restrict our ability to serve our Savior appropriately. However, I have been given guidance from the Maryland Association of Christian Schools, of course, the American Association of Christian Schools local chapter here in the state of Maryland, that I read a little too far into what Governor Hogan was saying, and that he specifically left out wording about educational facilities, and that even so, our educational facility is a controlled environment. And therefore, we'll be going back to our original reopening plan, where I ask students to come into the ministry, because there's mixing of instructional units, to come into the ministry wearing a face mask, as they're in the general hallways in places like the gym, that once again could be mixed instructional units, to wear a face mask. But when they are in their classroom, when we are in that controlled environment, that they would be able to remove those face masks. Once again, according to Governor Hogan's recent guidance right there, we will not be requiring face masks at any time for students who are 5 years of age and younger for our K3 through K5 program. It's still recommended that our 3 through 5-year-olds wear a mask into the building, but it is not required. All students 6 years old and up are required to enter our building with face masks, but they can once again take them off when they reach the classroom. I am so very thankful for the guidance that the Maryland Association of Christian Schools gave me in that regard. A couple more questions that were pre-submitted. And once again, if you have questions, please be emailing us so that Ms. Davis can give us those in just a couple of moments. Next question is, will FCA still hold fall athletics? So we had to cancel our middle school program, and it saddened me. But the way our instructional units are partnered, our middle school program requires our 5th and 6th graders to be able to participate, and mixing those instructional units through my reopening plan away. And therefore, I had to cancel middle school sports. It just so happens that a lot of schools in the Maryland Association of Christian Schools Athletic Conference are also canceling sports, but we did that without MACSAC right there. I still have a meeting with MACSAC about what exactly Maryland Christian schools are doing, and I'll be talking with the president of that association and getting some of their guidance. Right now, we plan on having fall soccer, fall volleyball. I believe that as long as we can control that environment in certain ways, that we can give a sports program to do it safely, to do it appropriately, and to do it in a way that won't shut down our facilities. If it comes to a point where athletics is going to stop education from being in person, we will shut down athletics. But I believe that we have the ability to do this in a way that will not shut down our educational program, and therefore we do plan on holding athletics at this time. I then had a question from a parent that asked, how can parents best support the faculty and staff of FCA at this time? Number one, I'd like to say thank you for thinking about how best you can partner with us. That's exactly what we are trying to do here as we assist and as we partner with you. And there were a couple of things that I thought through that we would appreciate if you would do for us, with us, as we partner together. Number one, prayer. We need you to pray for the ministry. We need you to pray for a hedge of protection, that God would keep COVID-19 out of our ministry as long as he is willing to do so. I guarantee COVID-19 cannot find us unless he sovereignly allows it. And therefore, I am praying that it is a part of his plan that it does not find us. And so prayer would be huge. Encouragement. Reach out to your classroom teacher. Let them know that you're praying for them. Ask them if there's something that you can do to partner with them, assist them at this time. A note of encouragement can be everything to making a teacher's day. And of course, therefore, is just better in tune with your child there as well. So I recommend a word of encouragement and that proper spirit of working together. Thirdly, and a huge one, if your child is not feeling well, keep them at home. If you think there is any chance that they are exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, please do not bring them into the ministry. It would be better for you to have 1 day off of work to monitor the situation than possibly close down an entire instructional unit because COVID-19's ended up finding the ministry. And so please be aware of your child's health and do not send them in unless you are positive that they are healthy. That would be absolutely huge and would help the risk of everyone if we would partner together appropriately in that way. Next question is, how should parents pick up their children during aftercare hours from 3:30 to 5:30 without entering the building? I'm going to tell you there are going to be some changes to dropping off and picking up. And if you read my FAQ that is on the website, it goes through a little bit of that right there. Once again, our website is fcamd.org. Click on the admissions section, and that's where you'll find all of our reopening plan, our waiver, my FAQ, and some guidance there about face masks that I now need to change, thanks to the Maryland Association of Christian Schools. But when you are looking to pick up your child after school and it's after 3:30 and therefore a part of our aftercare program, we still request that you don't come into the building unless truly necessary. And so somebody will be there. You can come in. You can hit the buzzer. We will talk to you through the door, through our phone system, and ask, of course, which child are you coming to. We can use the cameras to see which parent we are dealing with right there. And either someone will physically walk your child to you, or we will ask you to go to the elementary doors or to a door that we can monitor, and we will physically be watching to make sure that your child comes to you. All depends on the age of the child. If the weather is bad and you don't feel like getting out and hitting a buzzer and having to come in right there, you can call. And of course, when you call us, aftercare phone rings, our regular number, 301-473-8990, and we can go through that whole situation, direct your student to the door at that time through our phone system. Likely for the first couple of weeks, while we're getting used to the new rhythm of things, we're going to have extra staff here to make sure that everything runs smoothly and to try and help everyone at this time, as there's a lot to get used to. We understand that. And so hopefully that answers your question as to how to pick up your child during aftercare hours. We ask that you hit the buzzer or give us a call, and we'll bring your child to you at that time. Two more questions here before we open it up to the floor or to the emails. The next question is, in the past, individual music lessons were offered to students as well as aftercare art classes at a cost. And will these activities still be available? I will say that at this time, we are not offering music lessons during the school day. I know Mrs. Davidson is still willing to work with those that are already a part of her studio in giving virtual lessons. Mrs. Griffith, one of our teachers from last year, reached out to me. They're now in South Carolina, but she mentioned that she is willing to do virtual instruction. Obviously, it'd be impossible for her to come to the ministry as she's out of state now. And so if you're interested, we can connect you with one of those two women if you're interested in music lessons. However, that would be done at your home instead of being done at Frederick Christian Academy, and obviously then done on your own time, not done during the school day. So music lessons at this time are not being offered. However, we do plan, maybe not for the first couple of weeks, but we do plan on having aftercare art with Mrs. Davis. We'll do it by instructional unit. That way we're not mixing instructional units, and therefore that's still a part of our plan, and Mrs. Davis will be providing that information once the school year begins at that time. My last question is, I heard you hired another teacher. Can you update us on any faculty and staff changes? And I am so thankful to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for how he has just been willing to work with a number of changes that we've needed. I'm sure many of you are aware, or if you were not, just to let you know, Mrs. Kidwell retired from our 5th and 6th grade classroom, And we hired Miss Davis to take that position right there, 5th and 6th grade. Miss Thompson retired from our 1st grade classroom. And that one right there, I ended up moving Miss Scott from K-5 to 1st grade. And then to fill my K-5 position, I moved Mrs. Koblentz from K-3 to K-5. Very thankful for both of those ladies right there. We have hired a K-3 teacher, that is Miss Ventura, as a new teacher for us this year in our K-3 and our preschool department. We also just recently hired Miss Clark to split 3rd and 4th grade. For the past number of years, we have had a 3rd and 4th grade combined class with Miss Pryor, and Miss Pryor has done a great job. But we just split that by hiring Miss Clark, and so now we do have a 3rd grade only teacher, as well as Miss Pryor in 4th grade. Last position that changed, I guess there's 2 more in all reality. Ms. Blaylock ended up leaving the ministry, and so we've hired a new history teacher. That is Ms. Bolin. Very excited for you guys to come in and to meet Ms. Bolin right there. And lastly, I was able to hire a new athletic director, and that is Mr. Ellenwood. And so a number of changes of moving some pieces, hiring some new faculty and staff. God really has been very gracious to our ministry. Oh, I almost forgot. We have a new secretary for the 3rd year in a row. And that is just the way God had it for us. But if you haven't already heard from Mrs. Lyons, one of our homeschool moms from the past, is now here with us. She is also our school nurse, has 1 more class to complete to being a school nurse officially for us, and very thankful for Miss Lyons partnering with us. So if you call the school phone, you will end up reaching her, and that's a wonderful thing for us. And so, number of faculty and staff changes, that is all of my questions. Ms. Davis, do you happen to have any questions from the email? It is not on. There you go.
Okay, we do have an email that came in from the Hall family, and they want to know what the class sizes are looking like, and have we maxed out at 14?
Sure. So we are limiting all class sizes to 14 right there, which in the past, honestly, hasn't been a problem. We've never really maxed out at 14 at any of our classes. Right now, the only class that we have maxed out is 5th and 6th grade. We were maxed out for 3rd and 4th grade, and we had a waiting list, hence we hired another teacher to split that. We are currently maxed out at 5th and 6th grade, and if there is a waiting list, we'll seek to hire another person for that, as we would love to split those combination classes. It depends on the grade level as to how many kids are there. We're currently at about half capacity at most classes, specifically preschool and elementary, 7th and 8th grade, a couple ninth grade is around 6. When you reach our secondary, we've had a number of families that are struggling to decide whether it's going to work out for them, and so we have very low enrollment currently in our 10th through 12th grade classes, just to be completely open and honest about that. But it just depends. The only classes right now that are full are 5th and 6th grade, and therefore we are seeking students and parents to partner with for all other grades.
I have another question from the Hall family, and they ask, can we walk our children to the class on the first day?
First day of school, yes, absolutely. So, of course, we're asking parents not to enter the school building unless necessary. If at all possible, we're going to have Mrs. Lyons do any office work that you need to do with her, either on the phone or she's going to walk to the door and we'll do it from the door, just to keep that controlled environment. And once again, to try and mitigate any possibility of COVID-19 finding the ministry or spreading in the ministry unnecessarily. We do recognize that the first day of school is unique. We are allowing, and this is also in my frequently asked questions for my COVID-19, my FAQ, we are allowing our K3 through K5 parents to come, get a temperature check, just like our students are, and then to go to the elementary doors, because that is where those classes are, and to enter from that special location right there and be able to go in and bring their children in for K3 through K5. We do ask that first grade and up not come in the first day of school. Instead, we are opening up our back to school night. That's next Thursday on August 13th, if I have that date correctly. Back to school night is our time when parents can come in and see the classroom, especially with the number of new families that we have. We recommend coming into back to school night, meeting the teacher, having that face-to-face instruction or that conversation, and getting to see the classroom in person. If you want to do that beforehand, you can come in and get a tour. We'd be happy to show you our facilities before school opens through a private tour or through the open house that we have next Wednesday, by all means. However, once that first day begins, we do ask for first grade and up to not enter the school building unless necessary right there. All right. At this time, before we take another email question from anyone in the floor, anybody happen to have a question from the building? Yes, Ms. Ohio. All right, the question was, how would pickup be for regular students? So rather than aftercare, this is from 3 o'clock to 3:30, as our elementary and preschool end at 3 o'clock, our secondary students end at 3:10, so a little bit of a difference right there. Right now, it sort of depends on the weather. It's raining currently right now, and so there's going to be a little bit of an issue when it rains or when it snows or anything like that. Our goal is to be able to bring the students out, to have the students outside their classroom window, and therefore that you could just drive up, basically wave and we'll let the student go to you, or you can park and be very careful in our parking lot as you come and get your child from 6 feet away, proper social distancing. For the classes that are at the back side of the building, we'll ask that they go out towards between the elementary building and Kemp Hall, as we've done in the past. High school will end up coming beside the church building. Sorry, I use my hands a lot, and I know the people on live stream can't see where I'm pointing. You'll have to forgive me there. If it's raining, that is where we recommend, or if you don't feel like getting out of your car, calling us, and we can answer this on the phone. We have, I should have brought a walkie-talkie. We've recently purchased a walkie-talkie system so that we have better communication in and around. Or, of course, if you come to the door and buzz, we'll see you, and then we'll radio for your child to come in and let you have them from there if you got an umbrella and pick up your kid. But we are asking that, once again, you not come into the ministry even for pickup. And so this is where we'll have extra staff on hand in the beginning, as it will be different, to say the least. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, because I'm still concerned about the security of someone else coming to pick up my child. I
Sure.
think we need to have or suggest having some type of system where not just anyone can pick up. It might be maybe later on where maybe a number can be assigned. Because I've picked up kids from a different school, if you want a private school, and they have a number system.
Okay.
For each child. So if you don't have that number, you can't pick up the child. So anyone can come in right now under what you're proposing. Anyone can come in and call, say, I'm here to pick up Anna or Hugh, and they'll just go out. Is that what it is? Or how safe is it
Sure.
going to be for me being outside and picking up my child? Or
Sure.
anyone else coming to pick up? Because before we had to show IDs.
Yep.
For anyone that's not recognized by the teacher or on the list. So now that we're no longer coming in, how safe is that going to be picking up the child?
Okay. The question is related to the safety of not physically coming in to pick up the child and therefore not seeing a face if somebody is inside their car and calls in and asks for the child to come out to their car. How can we guarantee that some random person doesn't pick up the children and instead the parent or a certified individual picks up your children? So even on the phone, you have, or when you register, you have a list that you have given us of very specific people that are allowed to pick up your kids. And unless some outside person is aware of those very specific people and declares that they are one of those people, we of course are going to ask, who are you, what child are you are, and on our RenWeb, or now it's fax, school information system, we have access to every single teacher from their computers can see which people are on that list and who it is that is allowed to pick up your child. As we get used to the parent body, especially for the number of new parents that are there, we'll be looking at that list to try and ascertain as to who it is that's allowed. I've never heard of the number system. That is an interesting one. I'll have to consider your thoughts there on assigning a specific number. Even the number system would have an issue of if somebody from outside the ministry finds your child's number, it doesn't guarantee that it's really you, depending on how that is all done.
It's not like a number, just to clarify. I mean, the way they have it done, they give you a paper.
Sure.
With your last name and the number, so you only have that power paper for your family.
Sure.
So you're only supposed to show that. So you're responsible for keeping that paper. You get two per family. So no one else will get that. So you're the only one that has that. And that's
Oh, you got to show that number physically.
You have to show it physically,
You
you don't call it.
don't call it in and give it.
Come in with
Okay.
that, and then they call out
Interesting.
the kids and they bring the kids to the
Sure. In all reality, right now our system probably would go with, as you and the parent call, identify yourself as the parent. We would likely give the child to you as identifying yourself as that parent. If your parent is not coming in to pick up the child, you really should call the office and let us know that somebody else is doing it, or text your child's teacher and tell them very specifically who is going to be picking up your child. But I will consider the number system and see whether or not that is something that we could do. Once again, anybody else? Mr. Morrissey. So in my conversation with some of the other principals and with the executive director of MAX, we, of course, as a institution or as a grouping of schools there, have been asking, what are your schools doing? Do you read this the same way that I read this? And I was the only school, to be honest, that read it as if educational facilities were included in that. Their guidance was that Governor Hogan specifically did not include educational facilities in his wording, and that even the wording of, that he used a specific wording of general public being inside the ministry. And if you were in a controlled environment, that was different than if the general public were allowed inside the ministry. And I took that as right now we're giving a lot of tours. Absolutely, while we're giving tours, we have lots of the general public that are coming in currently. Once the school year begins, though, it is really a very controlled environment, as your children are allowed, but we're not even allowing you into the ministry. Nevertheless, some random person, we're going to ask the UPS driver to only come up to the door. We'll get those packages from there. Now, we will still give tours. When we give tours, we'll ask that they wear a mask, we'll check their temperature, all these types of things, and some of that will absolutely happen. But it'll be a controlled environment, and while those tours are going on, we can have them not go into the classroom, and we can radio into the teachers and say, hey, we're giving a tour. If you need to leave your classroom for some reason, please let us know so we can stay socially distanced. And we can work through some of that. But according to the guidance we have inside the classroom, and actually for some of these schools, inside their school building, not just in their classrooms, they are not requiring face masks because it is a controlled environment, was the wording.
Do you know if any of those people involved in that discussion reached out to the state offices for clarification?
The question was whether or not the MAX, the Maryland Association of Christian Schools, had reached out to state offices. I think I forgot to give your question originally the first time there. I could not answer that at this time. I did not ask that question. No, sir. Yes, Mrs. Morrissey. Sure. Chapel, I got you. Absolutely. So the question is how are we going to work the specific general place where we are currently here in the church auditorium, and how we're going to do our Thursday chapel sessions or any special event that is going to end up being in the auditorium. Let me deal with chapel because all events right now are being rethought, and I can't really give specific guidance as to any specific event as we're going to look at them as the calendar year happens throughout. For chapel, we already break elementary from secondary. Secondary is one whole instructional unit, so they will be able to come in and sit, and we're not making them stay 6 feet apart from each other at all times. We are allowing mixing right there. Once again, there is some risk involved with that, but that controlled environment. I've thought about giving very specific pews that they are allowed to go in, and they're not supposed to touch or sit at any other pew. That way they have their spot and doing chapel from there at all times. The real reason for that is for my elementary. So I would like to have K-5 through 6th grade, which is 2 different instructional units right there, both be here for elementary chapel. At this time, that's my goal. And so to do that, I would give, once again, very specific pews that the secondary doesn't go to and that the other parts of elementary doesn't go to, and I would make sure that they are, by instructional unit, a minimum of 6 feet apart. Skipping one pew would be the idea. I'm still considering elementary chapel. We have the ability to, of course, live stream. I can do a Google Meets and they can project it from their classroom. I will say, as someone who preaches, I'm not a preacher, but as someone who does most of the chapel messages, I feed off the kids. And having that interaction and knowing, getting within 6 feet of them and being able to direct and not just be in front of a camera and be stuck to a chair is everything. I prefer to teach while I preach, to move around, to be active. And if I do this only through a live stream, it's going to limit that immensely. However, if that's what's best, that is what we'll do. Right now, we're considering assigning the pew, and then, of course, the pews would be cleaned, I should say, after chapel is done. Okay, sounds good. Before we take any other questions from the floor, do we have any more email questions?
We do. From the Martinez family, we have, will our child be charged a tardy or absence if we keep them home due to possible COVID signs?
COVID signs. That is a good question, especially as if your child's not feeling well, I'm asking you to keep your child home. Let me deal with the tardy part of that question first, and then I'll get to the absence part. So especially during the first 2 weeks of school, in the fact that we're slowing down the ability to come in, we're checking temperatures, we'll likely, assuming that the weather is okay, we're going to come to you in car line, make it so that you don't even have to get out of your car to go through some of this. The coming into the school building is going to take longer until we get used to the rhythm of how all of this happens. And so tardies will be interesting as we go through. Typically, you would be tardy if you're not in class for the elementary by 8:30, for the secondary by 8:15, and we're going to have to consider showing some grace there in those first 2 weeks. As of September, I really hope that we find our rhythm and that we can get back to marking you tardy if you're not coming into school on time. For absences, honestly, if you keep your child home, it's 1 day, and you have said, my child is exhibiting sickness symptoms. It doesn't even have to be COVID-19 symptoms, and I would like to keep them at home. We put that as an excused absence. We do have to record it as an absence. That's just the way it works as we communicate these things to the Maryland Department of Health when they come in and check our records. So we have to put that as an excused absence, but it would be excused. We would not consider that an unexcused absence, as we're going to trust you that you are going to do what is best for your child. Please do not just keep them home for the sake of keeping them home, but really, if they're sick, you need to keep them at home. If this ends up being a multi-day event, you really need to go and at least do a teleconference with a doctor, and that way a doctor can say, yeah, I think you should stay. Let me email you a note that you can provide to your school so that we can continue to call these an excused absence. And then, of course, if your doctor gives you guidance that you need to go get tested, you need to follow that doctor's guidance to a T. I can't give that type of guidance. I can't tell you to go get tested for COVID-19. You need to follow up with your primary care physician for something of that nature.
Okay, they also had a second question. It says, if a child in an instructional unit does test positive for COVID, but that child has siblings in another instructional unit, then what will happen?
So the way and the purpose of the instructional units is that there, once again, is a chance that COVID-19 is found by somebody in the ministry. So let's just use my family as an example. I have 4 kids in FCA this year. One day I'll have all 5, and God has blessed me with a full quiver, as I'll put it right there. But if my oldest daughter, who is in 5th grade, gets COVID-19, she is a confirmed case, not COVID-19-like symptoms, but a confirmed case of COVID-19, I will shut down her classroom, likely shut down her entire instructional unit, just to be careful right there, for a minimum of 5 days. If after those that 5-day period, her other classmates are not showing signs, showing symptoms, they get a clearance from a doctor, there's nothing to say that they have a confirmed case of COVID-19, we'll let them come back into the ministry and return to in-person instruction. My other kids, though, go through all the different realms of elementary. So I got somebody in 3rd through 6th grade, I got somebody in K5 through 2nd, and I have my little man that's in K3 this year. They, of course, as a part of my family, are required by the CDC to be at home. They must be, and so my entire family will stay home. We will quarantine for 14 days, as is guidance nationally right there. However, if my little man or my other daughters are not exhibiting or are not a confirmed case of COVID-19, we do not plan on shutting down without symptoms, without that confirmed case right there. So even though I would shut down 3rd through 6th grade because my oldest daughter had a confirmed case, I do not plan on shutting down K3 and K4 or K5 through 2nd grade unless symptoms are shown by my other children. Now, if my other children end up showing and we get them tested and they are a confirmed case as well, this will have a snowball effect. That's just the way it has to happen. But the goal is, and the CDC guidance, is that this is not being spread the same way and is not affecting, especially the small children, the same way as it is affecting adults. And therefore, if the children are healthy, I don't believe there is any reason to shut down instructional units that are not a part of that confirmed case of COVID-19. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have another question from the Treadwell family. How lunch would look and be structured to minimize exposure?
Absolutely. So once again, lunches are going to be done by instructional unit. Secondary, once again, is the easy one because they're all one. So once again, seeming as 7th and 8th grade can be in the same classroom. Their desks are approximately 3 to 4 feet apart. They are not 6 feet. They are not required to wear face masks in the classroom. Lunch table is going to be the same way. They're going to be inside of their cohort. They're going to be able to enjoy each other's company in all of those things. When it comes down to the elementary, we still have to set up our lunchroom appropriately for this, but we'll end up breaking once again by instructional unit. The idea is that we have not just limited K5 to only ever be able to hang out with other K5 students, but we have a small group that will be allowed to participate in choir, participate in PE, participate in some of those other special parts outside of the classroom, and that they will sit at their own table just like they always have. K5 is one table, 1st grade is one table, 2nd grade is one table. Those tables will be spread by about 3 to 4 feet, as that would be normal, and then that instructional unit will be spread by a minimum of 6 feet. If I can do more, I'll do more, and of course the older elementary students will be at a different spot. Our K3 and K4 students have always eaten lunch in their classroom, and so that's not a problem as they'll be in that specific environment. And then, of course, to limit the possibility of spread or anything like that, students are not allowed to go and get their lunch from the window anymore. Their lunch will be brought to them, to their table. Everything's going to be served in closed containers because that's, of course, the guidance for food service. Currently, wrapped plasticware so that we're not the ones touching the plasticware. They get to open it up themselves. And so there is some changes to the lunch program because of that. Once again, some of that is inside of my FAQ, but I appreciate the question as to how we're going to spread and limit some of those things inside of our lunch program.
From the Johnson family, we have, will Fall Fest happen this year?
Fall Fest happen. I would love Fall Fest to happen. I will say at this time, with our instructional unit plan, it doesn't appear so. I don't know how I can make Fall Fest happen and somehow clean a moon bounce in between instructional units, unless I get some type of sprayer with COVID-19 approved materials from the CDC and spray that, but it would be soaking wet. Hopefully, this is more than is required. And the moment I can take away some of what we're doing and limit our reopening plan, make it so you don't even have to enter our facilities with a mask, make it so that I no longer have to worry about instructional units, we would love life to get back to normal as we have it. I doubt if that normality is reached by October. So I still have Fall Fest on the calendar. I still have a day off school for Columbus Day scheduled. And hopefully we'll be able to do something. If nothing else, I'll at least do something like jog-a-thon by instructional unit on the field, assuming the weather works out for me. And we can do something for these children. But I don't think we're going to be able to do something for families with Fall Fest. But only God knows. And if He gives us the ability to, absolutely. Maybe we can do Fall Fest in the spring. We just couldn't call it Fall Fest. This is Morris. I see the hand. Sure. For families and friends. Absolutely. So the question is, once again, our sports program, really, how are we dealing with fans? Are we going to allow fans at all at any of our home games? What are we going to do, of course, therefore, to limit the outside families from the other team? A whole lot of things that come up in Mrs. Morrissey's question. Part of this is we're still looking through. We don't have a home game, and as a matter of fact, our first home game was August 28th. That just got canceled, and so seeming as we have a little bit more time, I will tell you I'm still considering and looking through all of that. The answer is absolutely we're going to have to limit it. The real question is indoor sports. I am positive that I can let anybody that really wants to, as long as they're 6 feet apart, go to my soccer field, and to be able to have a full soccer program going on right there. To the best of our ability, other than the more parents I have, the more that might need to use the restroom, and I may or may not let you come in and use my restroom facilities, and I don't have an outhouse, so just keep all of those things in mind. McDonald's is about 3 minutes down the road. So there's still a couple of things there that we got to consider. The real thing is for our indoor sports, volleyball like you mentioned, basketball especially. The nice thing about basketball is I have 4 months to figure that situation out. I get to test volleyball out to see what happens and what works and what doesn't work. I am hoping that basketball or that volleyball shows us that I get to have a full basketball program. If I can, I'll have middle school basketball, I'll have JV basketball, I'll have varsity basketball, if volleyball shows us that we can do so safely right there. I will say that the church and school have done open houses or open gym nights, and we have had no issues with the open gym kids and the open field nights for the open field kids. We have had no problems. Nobody has contracted COVID-19 for the youth events that we did, church and school technically, over the summertime. And so I think there's a good chance that these things might be able to happen. For volleyball, though, once again, we are considering. And I have a MACSAC meeting next Monday to once again glean some wisdom from some of those other MACSAC schools and what guidance MACSAC specifically is going to give for that. I've been talking to the president, Ms. Lefevre, of that association. And I know for her and her school and MACSAC right now, we believe that we can open, that we can have fans, but likely we will limit it to potentially only families that have kids inside of, on the sports teams, I should say. Based on my instructional unit plan, I may have to limit all elementary students to not attend and only allow secondary students to attend, which is different from what other MACSAC schools might do. There's a lot going on with that question. I also may make it so that only home families can come, and that I tell the away teams, the only way I'm going to play a game with you is if you do not allow your fans to attend, and I'm sorry, but it's just the way it is. I will say that when the teams come in, they're going to get their temperature checked. We're going to ask them, we're going to go through the same protocol with them as we would with our own students. If we allow parents in the building, we're going to do that same thing with our parents as well. We're going to check your temperature. We're going to ask you, do you have any COVID-19 symptoms? We're going to make you wear a mask, all those types of things. So there will be some changes and limits, but I can't give specifically what we're giving as I'm still looking at all that guidance. That's a big question right there. Did you have a question, Ms. O'Hio?
I don't want to ask this question, but I do have to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I don't want the school to close.
Amen.
But in case if we were closed and we couldn't come, last year we experimented with virtual learning, which was, Lord help me. Do we have a plan this year? As this teacher tried last year to try and get the kids to see each other twice a week, for Ethan and Hannah's teacher, and Hannah did, do we have a system in place for that so that the teachers can actually teach the kids while we are, the building is closed? And secondly, do we have a system of turning in work instead of us emailing to the teacher, where the student can, like a classroom, something they can literally just go ahead and submit their work and get it online and submit it online? Do we have a better system this year in place just in case we shut down?
So once again, the question for Mrs. O'Hio is, in the case that COVID-19 finds and shuts down an instructional unit or, God forbid, shuts down the entire school, what is our virtual learning plan? She recognized, and we recognize, that everybody was caught by surprise in fourth quarter. And we kept assuming that we were going to be able to get back in. And I am so thankful for how hard my faculty and staff worked for what it is we were able to accomplish in fourth quarter. We limited some of the things we were teaching. We canceled certain classes to be able to make that work. Rather than me telling my faculty and staff, you have to use this program and you have to do it in this way, I let every teacher sort of choose a little bit of their own and to specifically work with their families to find out what worked for each individual family, as every family was different. And this is one of the reasons why we're opening in person. I really don't know how public schools are going to handle a full year. Well, I know right now it's until January 1st. I'd be highly surprised if they go back as of January 1st for 44,000 students. Really, virtual learning was very difficult, and I'm thankful for how well it worked, but it really was very difficult. So our plan right now is to adopt and use Google Classroom as much as we can. We have purchased laptops and have put laptops in every single elementary classroom from K-5 through 6th grade. We took our Chromebook program, which was originally only for 9th through 12th grade, brought it all the way down to 7th, so that every single student 7th through 12th grade has a Chromebook, and their way, they're already used to using a Chromebook and getting into Google Chrome, or Google Classroom for submitting assignments, seeing their assignments, asking teachers to make some videos, and already train students in that. The elementary is the same idea. I know your children in our elementary school. K-5 through 6th grade, we are looking for our teachers to already start training students to log in and to be able to use Google Classroom effectively. I don't expect them to do it for every single class right now until we have to, but I've asked my faculty to take a class and to try and work that entire class through these laptops in some measure so that they can get their instruction through the laptop. They would use Google Assessments to be able to do their assessments digitally, if at all possible. And then this year, especially as I don't plan on shutting down whole school unless it's really necessary, and even if we do, I plan on allowing my faculty and staff in to do their lessons from their classroom rather than having to go off of their Wi-Fi at their own house. And so the goal is, if we had to shut down, and if we have to have an entire instructional unit, the classroom teacher, I point to Ms. Davis because she's one of ours, right, would do so at the regular school times. We would give a list of, you're going to take this class at 8 o'clock, and you're going to take this class at 9 o'clock, you're going to take this class at 10 o'clock, and that the students would already be trained as to how to get in, be able to get that instruction. Now, it may be that we do a live. It may be that for certain classes, it's better to do a recorded video. And some of that will still go back and forth. I'm very thankful that Bob Jones has once again allowed us, and already has partnered with us, to allow us access to their homeschooling videos so that we can do in a pinch, like for a one day, or if you're sick, COVID-19 or not, and you're gonna miss a lesson, we can provide you that very specific homeschool video, even though you're not here for your in-person instruction. And so we may still use some of those videos if COVID-19 finds our ministry. But our plan is to have a scheduled school day to the best of our ability, to make it so that we can have as much live instruction as possible, and to train the students before this ever happens to know what to do. A part of that is we just created email addresses for every single kid, K-5 through 12th grade. You'll get a copy of that, and you'll have access to that, don't you worry, for every single child there. Because in order for Google Classroom to work effectively, they have to have their own login, as the only way that my teachers know who it is that's taking the assessment is if there's an email address that's tied to that assessment. Oh, I was mentioning real quick that because we don't plan on shutting down, if we have to go to some type of packet system, and you can come in and pick up a test, drop off a test, if emailing doesn't work out. Some people, emailing really was the best option, or taking a picture on their phone. You currently don't have, oh, I take that back. We could load an assessment into Google Classroom. You could scan it and load it directly into Google Classroom and just submit it that way as well. So our goal is to use Google Classroom as much as possible. If needed, pickup, I think especially of our K3, K4 program, if that ever ends up closing down. But we do plan on having a much more concerted effort, school-wide, everybody on one system, and that is Google Classroom. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Squire?
Yeah, so in terms of sanitation,
Sure.
do you have a company that's gonna sanitize like the common areas, like the lockers, the doorknobs, like deep, intense cleaning? Who's gonna do that?
Sure. So the question is about our sanitation protocol and who it is that we're going to have clean the facilities at any particular time. So there's a couple of different parts to your question right there. One part was about our lockers. I'm still considering whether or not I'm even going to open my lockers. I got to be honest. It may be best for us right now to just have the kids have their stuff in a backpack and travel with it for our 7th through 12th grade. I'm still considering whether or not that's possible. Right now, our secondary is currently low enough that I could actually split students like 2 or 3 lockers away from each other. And therefore, that might be still an option that we can do right there. Inside the locker, I'm going to tell you I'm not going to clean. That's your kid's job. Inside that locker, that's their space. However, the outside of the locker, those general hallways like you mentioned, those door handles, we have always partnered with an outside company. The actual name of the company is 5 Star Cleaning. Dale Lessner is the name of the individual who owns that. And we hire that because we don't have a full-time janitor to do that for us. They come in nightly and vacuum, go through the restrooms. Now we've partnered with them to do a little bit more. They'll actually clean all the doorknobs, all the heavily touched surfaces right there. Inside the classroom, each individual teacher is required to do that of their own. We, of course, provide the materials, whether it be a disinfectant spray that's on the CDC guidance list. I just spent a decent amount of time going around and getting quite a few Clorox wipes for the ministry. That way we're prepared, hopefully, for at least the first month, if not beyond right there with Clorox wipes. And whatever other parts need to happen, we're going to provide that for the teachers. We've asked you to help us provide some of that as well to mitigate some of the costs and to not have to charge any types of fees right there. And so they'll deal with their own classrooms. We've hired a company to do the outside areas. And even during the school day, there will be some, like the restrooms are a big one. How are we going to deal with the instructional units inside of these restrooms? And for some of them, like the elementary bathroom, the teachers are going to have to clean after their class is done. They're going to have to go through and wipe down the handles, wipe down the knobs, wipe down the doorknob, and sort of leave that refreshed for the next instructional unit that needs it. For the secondary, I'm going to have my athletic director, Mr. Ellenwood, go in periodically. The secondary bathroom's only for the secondary right now, so that's one instructional unit, but still, just to be careful, we're going to clean it a couple of times a day, as well as, of course, at the end of the day that's right there. So we're definitely amping up our cleaning protocol and what we're doing, and then we do have an outside company that comes in when we're all done. We're also looking at purchasing an electrostatic sprayer system. They're all on back order, so currently we do not have one, but we're looking into purchasing one so that we could spray as is needed, just go through, and at the end of a day, spray the whole classroom. I've also been giving guidance on, I'm hoping I'm going to give the right word here, ionized air unit, that you put it in the classroom, it ionizes the air, and then through charged particles, gets onto all the surfaces and cleans the surfaces through that. Something that is approved by NASA, and we are considering spending money to purchase those systems as well. I got to say, money is tight. I've got a lot of ways to spend money and only so much budget, and so that might be where we have our jogathon and ask parents and families to partner with us to help us afford some of those systems. But we're looking at some of those things. Did you have a follow-up right there? Oh, now your individual student, you're asking if they are allowed to wear gloves. By all means. You would have to provide them, as I can't afford to provide gloves at all times. Just like we're not requiring masks, but if you want your child to wear a mask at all times, absolutely. I'm not going to tell you that your child can't wear a mask. I will tell you that the other children they're with may not be wearing a mask, as I'm going to leave that, that option technically up to the parents right there. But absolutely, if you want to send your child in with gloves, that's not a problem. If you're going to do that, it's going to take more than one set of gloves a day. Because when you go into the restroom facilities and use the restroom, you're going to want to throw those gloves away, put a new pair of gloves on. I still recommend putting those gloves, washing your hands, and then putting a new set of gloves on. But by all means, yeah, if you want to wear gloves, all about it. Yes, Ms. Morrissey. Sure. Yep. So the question is related to my faculty. How am I working instructional units with my faculty? Because of course, someone like Mrs. Regner is going to teach more than one instructional unit. Someone like myself, as the principal, I have to have the ability to go into any classroom and deal with any problem that comes up in the school day at any time. And so my instructional unit is everyone. The nice thing is that we're talking about adults. So one, if they're not feeling well, if they are exhibiting symptoms, they have the ability to check themselves. I have to ask them to be completely honest with themselves, completely honest with me, and if they're physically not feeling well, they need to stay at home, and we'll do what it takes to work with ourselves inside the ministry to substitute, or possibly to have a very specific list of substitutes that as long as they're feeling okay, will come in and do some of that. Or if the teachers got some things that are a little bit not sure of, but still able to teach, they could potentially, we could put them on their screen, and they could actually teach from their home in our classrooms through their projector systems. Just go through a Google Meets, and it'll be a little bit different. I'd need a proctor in there to make sure those kids are paying attention. But we do have some ways to go through that. I got to be honest, reading through the CDC guidance, it is far more likely, according to the CDC, that my faculty and staff get COVID-19 than my student body does. And in a recent faculty meeting that I had, I mentioned to them, I am actually more worried about them and their health, some of their careful needs. I got some faculty members that may be getting up in years. I got some faculty members that may have some underlying health conditions, and I don't want them to have an issue with COVID-19. I will say that when they partner with me, they are taking a risk that COVID-19 finds the ministry and therefore finds them right there. And so I am asking them to wash their hands as often as possible, to consider wearing a face mask, even though it's not required, anytime they are within 6 feet of a student. I think that's good guidance right there. I purchase face shields for them so that if they would like to wear a face shield, or it may not be like, I may force them at certain times of the day to wear a face shield right there. I got to say, it is a little bit hard. I was testing it out. It's a real pain. But health is far more important than having a pain going on right there, because these guys are a pain as well. So we're doing as much as we can. They will have a lot more chemicals around them than they normally would. I don't know if I can mitigate that. I need my faculty to be able to clean. They're the ones that know this set of toys was used today. They're the ones that know this child was not here and these are the seats that were used. Or I think of someone who, like Mrs. Regner, is going to have a elementary instructional unit and then Spanish 1 immediately thereafter. And her job is to clean that classroom, anything the elementary students happen to touch right there before Spanish 1 comes in. She's going to have a lot more Clorox wipes or spray going on, spray and of course some paper towels or something like that, than some of my other faculty and staff. And if it needs be, I'll tell Spanish 1, afraid to say, you're going to have to wait in a certain spot and give the room an extra 10 minutes, and they might have 5 minutes left of class time, 10 minutes left of class time, to allow for her to do it in the appropriate manner to make that work. For the elementary, we may space them out a little bit more as they're going into a classroom. We'll do what it takes to keep, of course, our faculty and staff safe. If they do get COVID-19, because that was the last part of your question. Oh man, I don't think they're going to be able to teach if they have COVID-19. From what I have heard, because of course it hasn't found my family. God's been very good to my family. Hasn't really hit my church. Hasn't hit my school. I physically don't know someone personally that it has really affected. And the people that I do know that it has, they've been asymptomatic. And therefore it really hasn't been as bad as I know a lot of people have had to deal with it. And so we're going to have to do what it takes to teach appropriately. It might be that that means I step in and take over for that teacher and teach to the best of my ability. And you'll see how good of a job I do in that first grade classroom or in that sixth grade classroom or whatever the case may be. It may be that I ask my other faculty and staff to help out in a pinch and to do some recordings. That may be where we physically use those Bob Jones homeschooling videos, and we do that for 5-10 days until that teacher is feeling better, and we just load them up. And I can load all of those videos, and the teacher doesn't have to worry about getting up to do that. I can have access to their Google Classrooms and to get all of that up there, put some assessments on and things of that nature. Sure. Oh. Yep.
Have not been exposed to whatever that teacher might have had for the last 4 days.
All right.
Before being tested positive.
Absolutely. So the question is, if a teacher gets COVID-19, am I going to shut down their instructional unit? And the answer is yes. And this is where Mrs. Regner puts me into a little bit of a loop because she has multiple instructional units, and we really have to consider that. She's one of those interesting situations where I may have to shut down more than one unit for a certain span of time. If I end up getting COVID-19, I'll have to really think about that. I'm just hoping that God spares me from a lot because, once again, I have to be everywhere in the building. It's just the way it is. But let's take Miss C, for example. If Miss C ends up getting COVID-19, it's a confirmed case of COVID-19, I will shut down the entire secondary at that time. I'll shut it down for 5 days. If after 5 days I'll have them come back and then we'll do what we have to with subs to get in, because she is going to be required by CDC guidelines to be quarantined for 14 days right there. But absolutely, if the teacher gets it, they're a part of that instructional unit. This is not just kids. They're a part of that unit, and so we would have to shut down their unit. You're absolutely correct. Yes, ma'am.
To what you just said, you said you were shutting down for 5 days.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Where did you get the 5? Because sometimes it takes up to 14 days for them to exhibit any symptoms.
Sure.
So 5 days won't really show if they have it or not.
So, okay, so the question here is how I came up with 5 days, very specifically, because I've used those two words quite often throughout this broadcast. So looking through all the guidance, I will say that, once again, it does not appear that kids spread this very well if they are pre-symptomatic with what it is they got going on. I understand that 5 days may not be perfect, but 5 days gives us at least a week plus a weekend to be able to go through and determine. That could end up being 7 days, depending on the weekend and things like that. In all reality, I'm trying to get us in the classroom as much as possible. Now, once again, if after 5 days I have everybody come back, somebody all of a sudden becomes a confirmed case, and if this ends up being something that occurs, we will reevaluate all of our plans. And if I got to change this to 10 days, I'll change it to 10 days. If it means I got to change it to 14 every single time, I got to be honest, if I got to change it to 14 days every single time, we might as well start a full virtual instruction like FCPS. That's my initial thoughts right here.
Because I did experience that a friend of mine's kids did not show. They tested them after a few days, they didn't show, but later on, I think 10 or 11 days later, they tested positive for them. But they checked them initially when the dad was, and they didn't show, but they show later. They didn't show any symptom, even after they tested, they still were carriers, but they never showed.
Okay.
But they were still carriers.
Sure. So Ms. O'Hue was saying that she personally had a situation where she knew a family where the kid didn't show symptoms until they were tested a second time, and that was 10 days after the fact, where that child was confirmed with COVID-19 after their parent got COVID-19. Once again, looking through, actually the guidance is 3 days and above. I've gone to 5 days. I forget specifically whether it was the American Academy of Pediatrics or whether it was the CDC. I probably should have that specific guidance and be able to give you that specific spot right there. But it was 3 days, just like it's not supposed to be able to survive more than 24 to 72 hours on a surface right there. And so even if for some reason we miss it, such as, for example, our library, we're going to bring elementary library to them. After it's been inside of a classroom, we're going to take those books and put them away for 3 days, and no one else is going to touch them for 3 days to 5 days, and before we allow another instructional unit potentially use those same books outside of our library right there. And so based on our guidance and based on my communication with other principals, with the other people that I've talked to, I believe 5 days at this point is good. I will say there is risk involved with all of that. Pastor.
And when you say 5 days, you're saying 5 instructional days?
Oh, that's a good question. Pastor is asking very specifically, do I mean 5 instructional days? Actually, the guidance that I had is specifically 5 calendar days. So you are right that depending if that is a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would bring the instructional unit back in on that Monday right there inside of those 5 days. I will say the guidance is all, and our entire plan is fluid. We will change as is appropriate. I will say that I gave my plan to the Frederick Health Department, and they have not given me any guidance saying that I need to change any of this. I am trying to book them for a section of my in-service for my faculty next week, and can ask them that specific guidance there as well. And once again, if it needs to be that we change, we change. But I gotta say, being closed for 2 weeks at a time would be difficult, to say the least. Yes, ma'am.
So if there's a confirmed case of COVID-19,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
are you going to send out an email to the student body, the parents, and notify, but not disclosing who had the COVID-19 due to privacy reasons? Are you going to do that to alert?
The answer is absolutely, but let me reiterate the question. Ms. Quire is asking, if there is a confirmed case of COVID-19, how am I going to communicate to the school body? And absolutely, an email is going to be what we do. I am not going to communicate that somebody had to leave the school building, because the COVID-19 symptoms could be the common cold, they could be the flu, they could be strep, I mean, we've never communicated, hey, there's one child in your classroom that has the flu. Just to let you know, you may end up getting the flu. That's just not something we've ever done. However, if there is a confirmed case of COVID-19, absolutely, we will send out a school-wide communication to say that there was a confirmed case inside the school. We will tell the instructional unit that they need to close down, and we'll provide communication and guidance as is necessary. If there is a confirmed case of COVID-19, I am also legally required to let the Frederick Department of Health know. I will disclose your child's name to the Frederick Department of Health, whereas I will not put them in that email for privacy reasons, but I will give it to the Frederick Department of Health right there. And if they at that time have guidance saying, based on what's going on in the community, we think that you need to shut down for this amount of time, we will absolutely follow their guidance at that particular time right there. But yeah, in terms of communication, we will send out school-wide communication to let everybody know what is going on, absolutely. Hence, what I'm doing right here, I believe in being transparent and being honest, and I plan on continuing to do that through the school year. Yes. At this time, let's go back to some emails, if you don't mind, ma'am.
Okay. We have a question from the Johnson family that says, will Mrs. Davis still be able to have paint nights?
I don't see why she couldn't. So the nice thing about paint nights is that it's specifically in a modular. You actually don't have to have access to my school building, and I am positive that even though we're talking probably about adults that are limited in what they can do inside my school building, once again, I think paint nights will probably be able to happen. The other nice thing is that paint nights won't be in until later in the fall, later in the winter. We have time to figure out how serious is this really. Because once again, the way this is going countywide, because everybody shut down so quickly, everybody has a plan, but nobody has tested their plan. It may be that my plan is perfect, COVID-19 never finds my ministry, and we start repealing parts of our plan as we go through. It may be that we find out that this plan is not strong enough, and that we need to change and adapt to keep our children safe, and we will do whatever it takes to be able to do that. And so thankfully we have time to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of our plan and to be able to work through those issues before we do any of our school events, such as a back-to-school night fundraiser, such as a jogathon or a fall fest, such as a Christmas concert, or such as graduation. There's a lot of things going on here that we would love to do and to be able to have, and our goal is to be able to do them all, but we will evaluate, absolutely.
From the Kaiser family, it says, hi.
Hi.
Will you still have pizza day and holiday concerts?
Okay. So let me deal with holiday concerts first. The answer is, I don't know. I actually would be slightly surprised if the fear that is currently going on in our nation about COVID-19, if that subsides to a level where I can allow the mixing of instructional units and therefore a concert inside of the school. I've been in contact with both Mr. Livermore and Mrs. Regner from my elementary choir and my secondary choir, and likely we will end up doing a virtual recorded situation where each class records a song, we piece them together, and then we put it on YouTube. I doubt we're going to be able to do something live right there. This year, our secondary, it's our year to do our drama. I know Mr. Livermore is very excited to work with Mrs. Davis to make this drama happen right there. I will say last year, or not last year, 2 years ago, our drama had, I think it was third graders all the way to 12th graders in it. That part's not going to be able to happen in terms of our current plan. But I would love to be able to bring the student body in towards the end of the school year and to be able to put on our play that we have. But we will see. If it has to be, we'll record it, just put it on YouTube, and let you watch it through that means. But all these things will be evaluated. I missed the first part of the question. What was the first part of the question? Pizza, right. How could you miss pizza? Absolutely. All right, so the answer there is not at the moment. I do not have the ability, because pizza is specifically a senior fundraiser, and I can't have my seniors serving my elementary. That's a mixing of my instructional units. And so for the first couple of weeks, the answer is no, unless that's what Mrs. Riggs decides to make. I would assume that if Mrs. Riggs is doing it, she probably is going to make her own pizza, then buy Domino's and sell it. That's just to me what I see Ms. Riggs doing. Ms. Riggs, if you're on, thank you, appreciate it. Feel free to comment by email. I don't know if Mrs. Riggs is on or not, and so we'll move on from that. But at this time, I know there's pizza sales that at this point we'll say no to, although I know there's, I think there's always an option of a microwave pizza if you don't like what Miss Riggs is cooking for the day, if I remember correctly, so you can always order that. There's also the question, therefore, will we do floats? Will we do popcorn? And the answer is not in the elementary, because this is all done by students in my secondary classes right there. This is a senior fundraiser. I guess I didn't answer, will I do this for my secondary? I could have my seniors give it to my 7th through 12th graders. I just can't have them for K3 through 6th grade. So I'll talk to my seniors about whether or not they get to have pizza, whether they can have an ice cream float during lunch. I'll talk to my, my upperclassmen as to whether or not it's going to work out for them and whether there's enough money in the game for them to work that effort. If we can, I'd love to do it. The moment we can do that safely, love to do it. If Miss Riggs is willing to do that, I'd be happy to have her do it, although I don't know how we'd serve ice cream in a closed container, other than, I guess, just putting it in a closed container. Obviously, I hadn't thought through that before I let it come out of my mouth. Moving on in life. So, afraid not. Pizza is going to be very limited until we're able to reevaluate that plan.
So a follow-up to that is, so the seniors will not be able to do their classroom with the youngsters volunteering?
Okay. So the question is, can my seniors be a teacher's assistant in class with an elementary classroom? Once again, this is where I love being the FCA family. I love the fact that my seniors are in the same hallways as my elementary. They get to say hi as they go through, as long as they're not too loud, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they'll give a high five as they're going past. I love being able to use my seniors and my juniors when my juniors are available to be able to go into the classroom, read with the kids, helps with reading for both my seniors, as well as, of course, my elementary students. It gives them a vote of confidence, and it really puts that family feel together. At this time, I am not able to allow teachers' assistants in the classroom. I will tell you that I'm considering still having teachers' assistants. It will be outside the classroom, and the teachers will say, hey, here's something I need you to do, Justin. Thank you. And they may still do it that way. I know I really wanted one very specific senior to work with Mr. Ellenwood in my gym, in my gymnasium. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. You're absolutely right. I don't know at this moment how, but the moment I can, I'd love for it to happen. But based on my instructional unit plan, I can't have that mix. You're absolutely correct. Otherwise, what's the point in my instructional unit plan? I have to organize my program to work with my reopening plan. And so, yes, I'm going to have to limit teachers' assistants at this time. You're absolutely correct. Next question, ma'am.
Okay, from the Treadwell family, they want to know if there's any chance the silent auction can move online.
Sure. Silent auction, number one, is a good thing for our school. It really killed us that we didn't get to do our second grade silent auction. To all my former second graders, we still have all of those items. And we still plan on doing that silent auction. You'll have to forgive me for not remembering why that didn't happen throughout the summer, other than that life was crazy. So silent auctions, we definitely, seeming as there's certain fundraisers we're not going to be able to do inside the school, I think silent auctions is something we will be able to do and to do well and to do appropriately. An online option would be a wonderful thing. I got to be honest, right now, I'm not exactly sure how I'd make that happen, although I know there are lots of companies that ask for my money to be able to do that for me. I really hum and haw about whether or not I partner with an online company and give 5 to 10% of my profits to somebody that isn't a part of my ministry. But if that's what it takes and that's what's going to make it successful, then I'm willing to do that. So yeah, silent auctions online, that is a great thought, and it's one that I will write down. Isn't it great? Silent auction online. Mr. Treadwell, I believe that was your question. If you have any guidance, feel free to get back with me. I appreciate that.
From the Johnson family, we have, will kids be required to stay home if they have visited a hotspot state? And she has a second question after that.
All right, let me deal with the first question because that is an interesting one. Will the children have to stay home if they visit a hotspot state? That's a difficult one. I will say that originally our secondary classes would go to Virginia, and Virginia is not right now a hotspot state. We'd go to Virginia for Camp Rapidan. This year it was going to be the very first week of school, just the way the calendar ended up hitting and it ended up getting booked. I had to cancel that. I don't know how in my plan I'm able to take my students out of state and to do this effectively. Instead, I'm having a little bit of camp come into the school. I have Pastor Gleiser still coming in, and he's going to do chapel with my secondary. for those that are with us here, and I plan on asking Mr. Ellenwood to do a couple of games. It won't quite be the camp experience, but it'll be something. So the first week of school will look a little bit different for my secondary students with all of that right there. At this time, I really don't believe that it is in my position to be able to tell you, you have to stay home, you have to quarantine. If the governor comes out with guidance saying that if you come from a hotspot state, you are expected to quarantine, absolutely, I will take that into consideration and will likely go along with whatever Governor Hogan has, as I do believe that would be appropriate. But without Governor Hogan saying, I want someone to quarantine if they come from a hotspot state, I am unlikely to do that, and at this time, I don't believe that is the case.
So
Second part of the question.
the second part is basically about screening. So will families be screened with questions regarding travel to out of state?
At this time, I had not planned on asking very specifically every family, every day, have you traveled out of state? I would love it if the parent body would partner with me and would be willing to say that they traveled out of state, just for our knowledge. I would never share that with the other students in the classroom. Although if you traveled out of state, there's a good chance your student tells us that you traveled from out of state. Just got to be honest right there. Your kids tell us a lot of things. I probably shouldn't have said it quite that way. But anyways, but I would love for you to just be open and honest with me as I'm being with you right now and say, hey, just want to let you know, in the past 2 weeks of taking a trip to Hawaii. It was beautiful, but maybe you should be aware. I don't even know if Hawaii is a hotspot state. But anyways, I don't plan on asking that question. If I get guidance that it really would be the best thing by the Frederick Health Department, I might consider it, but at this time, I don't believe it is truly necessary.
Okay. And we have from Mrs. Phillips, my question is, what added support will teachers and staff be receiving this year to prevent burnout with the extra stress of COVID-19?
The extra stress. Maybe I should go back to my question as to how can you as a parent best assist my faculty and staff? Recognize my faculty and staff are putting a lot at stake. They are going to be working hard to once again partner and to assist, to provide a high quality education, both of course academically, if possible athletically, obviously spiritually, as that is always our goal right there. They very well might get stressed out, and giving them an email with a Bible verse just saying, hey, I'm praying for you, that would be huge to them. Throughout the year, I'll consider some different things that I can do to perk them up. I will say that anytime I put a little Post-it note on their desk and leave dark chocolate along with it, it seems to work really well, and I might have to increase that program. The times when I tell them, you know what, lunch is on me, Mrs. Riggs, if you could make sure the faculty and staff get a free lunch today, I find that works pretty well. I've tried donuts, and sometimes donuts are left over. It blows me away that I have to sacrifice and eat all the donuts when I go home, or share them with my children, I guess I should probably
We don't
say.
want the calories.
We don't want the calories. Well, each to their own. Let's just put it that way. But anyways, so I really hope to be able to develop some things. I will say that I tried to limit the amount that I am teaching so that I am more available for my faculty and staff. To be able to go in and say, how's it going? How can I help? Just check on certain things. Maybe just for me to be able to help, for Mr. Ellenwood to help, potentially for Mr. Livermore to come in a little bit more and help by taking the cleaning of the restrooms away from them during the day. It all just depends as to what causes them the most stress and how to partner with them most appropriately. And I truly hope that they'll be honest and open with me to just say, Mr. Lavoie, I'm really stressed out, and this is some way that I could really use your assistance. Because if they don't tell me, likely I am not going to be aware, just to be completely honest about that. So, any way we can is the answer to that question. Let me take another one before I go to the floor.
Okay, we have the last question is, will you return to your previous hairstyle for the 2021 school year?
Will I return to my previous hairstyle for the 2021 school year? The answer is no. It saddened me that I received guidance to change my hairstyle. There's a number of families that have never been with my ministry and are unaware what I used to look like right there. But I used to spike my hair, and I was given guidance that it was time for me to wear my hair down. It looked good, at least I thought it looked good, especially when it was short. I will say I struggle to quit work and take the time to get my hair cut, and therefore to actually have it stay looking good, and there were times when it was a little long, little too spiky for even my own measure. But no, my hair is here to stay, and it is boring. It slightly hides my receding hairline, but I don't know why I just said that on live stream. Open and honest. Once again, I am transparent. Thank you for watching tonight.
That concludes our questions.
That concludes the questions. Once again, from the floor, before I close, I know time is going a little bit long, but does anybody once again have a question they want to ask before I close officially? Hey, that is great. Number one, to the people that are in the room and to the people that are watching on live stream, don't consider this as done. If you have a question, please email me. I will say that I would prefer for you to email me at info@fcamd.org rather than COVID-19. That's an email address that I created specifically for this town hall meeting. But info@fcamd.org, my personal email address, dlavoie, that's DLAVOIE, @fcamd.org would be the best way of doing it. If you have a question for your teacher, absolutely, start reaching out and asking them, how is it that you might be able to work this inside of your classroom? What exactly are you going to do? Come into that back-to-school night next Thursday and ask us great pointed questions. You never know when you wake up tomorrow morning and you're like, man, I wish I had asked that. We're here. We're here to partner with you. And we want you to be comfortable with bringing your children in. That we're doing enough. That if it needs to, that will change. And then if it doesn't need to, that will also change and repeal. And so we would love to continue to partner with that. Let me close, though, by reading a hymn. I was trying to decide as to how I wanted to close this meeting, and I was reminded at one of our church services that we held outside a couple of weeks ago, and one of the hymns that we sang was In Times Like These by Ruth K. Jones. And it just shows exactly where my heart is, where I believe our Savior's heart is, and where we need to be so that we can magnify Christ, so that we can follow Christ always, as was my theme this year, and in all reality is for the school and our identity of FCA, following Christ always. Even as I first came into the school just a couple of years ago, and it was for His glory, that everything that we would do would glorify our Lord and Savior. In times like these, that is absolutely true. Let me read to you just the first verse and the chorus of the hymn, In Times Like These. It says, in times like these, you need a Savior. In times like these, you need an anchor. Be very sure. Be very sure your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. The refrain says, this rock is Jesus. Yes, He's the only one. This rock is Jesus, the only one. Be very sure. Be very sure your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you that my anchor is on the solid rock. FCA is dedicated to serving the solid rock. If for some reason you were unsure of what we mean by placing an anchor on the solid rock, please let me know. I would love to take you through some scriptures so that you can be aware as to God's plan of salvation for you. I truly hope that everybody that is partnering with us today already is a saved family and is firm in their foundation of faith, and therefore you can say amen to something like this. But don't forget that in times like these, we need to magnify Christ. Pray for us. Know that we're praying for you. Thank you very much.